So yeah, today I want to talk a little bit about something that I'm super passionate about and I've been trying to work on for a while, and that is bridges and what I've been kind of screaming from the hills calling it the last network effect. This was originally called People, Not Platforms, but I like this a lot better because I think it tees up what I'm trying to talk about a little bit better. But quickly, just to introduce myself, sorry, my laptop is, there we go. Quickly to introduce myself, I'm Anuj Ahooja. I, alongside Ryan Barrett, am building a new social where we're trying to build multi-protocol systems for the open social web. Of course, Lenovo gets in the way. One of the examples of that is BridgeFed, which is a bridge that connects the web, ActivityPub, and ATproto. I also write a lot on my blog. I rant a lot about the open social web on augment.inc, but I also talk about technology in general. And one thing that I talk about very often is how tech products have this tendency to kind of over time get crappier. I think we've all seen it. You love product gets super popular, then the financial stuff comes into play and they squeeze you for every penny that you got, and it starts sucking like crazy, and you wish you had a way to escape. And I think that feels the worst when it happens on social media because you spend years building these friendships, these relationships, these communities, and sometimes you just feel like you got the rug pulled from under you. I think we've all felt it at some point. I know I felt it when Google Plus shut down. It hurt me a lot. I had a lot of communities there and I had no way out of that. I know a lot of my friends felt it when Reddit shut down the API and they weren't able to experience the service the way that they wanted to. And I think a lot of us here experienced it when things happened with Twitter, and it was taken by the wrong people, the worst people that they could have found. And we, that one hurts a little bit more, mostly because Blue Sky, as we all know, was supposed to bring Twitter to the AT protocol. So if they were given enough time, we would have had an escape hatch. We would have been able to press eject and leave somewhere else. But unfortunately, they weren't given enough time. And now this lives in my head rent-free all the time, as it probably does for a lot of you as well. But instead of dwelling on the past, I've been trying to figure out where we go from here and how we make sure that we're ready for the next moment like this. And luckily, there's some really interesting stuff happening in the space. A lot of the reasons why you guys are here today. As these lapses of judgment, let's call them that, from X continue to happen, we're starting to see these waves of migration leaving X over to various other platforms. Blue Sky is obviously one of them, but for better or for worse, they're also going to places like Threads, Mastodon, and with some of the mistakes that Meta's making, we're also seeing waves of people going to PixelFed as well, which is really cool to see. So we're seeing these 4 platforms growing, and the cool thing about all 4 of these platforms is that they're all built on open protocol technologies, which means that you can connect all of these things in different ways, and it's super interesting. But an interesting byproduct of that is because they're growing, other social media platforms are paying attention and they're adopting protocols. And that's awesome, right? Because they're seeing the fact that they can tap into these networks and they don't have to start from scratch, and they can tap into networks that already exist, and they don't have to be in this silo where they have to start from scratch every single time there's a new product that launches. And that brings me to what I've been calling the last network effect, where if we have a critical mass of users on the open social web and we enable platform migrations and there's enough platforms for people to choose from, there's less reason for people to leave those and start from scratch in a social silo. And that's awesome, right? Because once you're in the open social web and you're in the open social web, we can continue to connect you to new spaces as time goes on. But then the problem comes along of, which protocol should win, right? And to me, I actually don't know if that's the right question to ask right now. Mike Masnick has a really good post on this, but to sum it up, I think it's really nice that we're in this exploratory phase because I think we're still trying to figure out what users want, and as we've learned over the course of this weekend, we're all still trying to figure out what all of this stuff means for users as well. I come from a background of working with ActivityPub and AT, but I spent a lot of time with ActivityPub, and one of the things that I was yelling about in that space is how the user experience is really bad. We've talked about it and how identity isn't the central part of the network, and so they have a bunch of UX issues, and as more platforms on board to ActivityPub, those UX issues are only going to get worse. So we have to work on those problems as soon as possible so that ActivityPub actually starts making a lot more sense to the average user. And on the AT side, I think they've solved a ton of those problems. They're doing an amazing job. But in the current state that we're in, there are a lack of options, and I think we have to grapple with that. And so the promises that we're making about the open social web aren't always true in the current moment. It's more of a future-looking thing. And so I want to be ready for that future, but also make sure that we're catering to the users that we need to come in today. So why not both, right? Por qué no los dos? Something that Ryan says quite a bit and said a lot in his presentation yesterday. To me, it's, hey, let's all work on these different protocols. Nostr is doing a lot of interesting stuff. Farcaster is doing a lot of interesting stuff. And I think we're actually learning a lot from each other and growing because of each other. Every time Blue Sky launches something, you can see all of the other platforms like right away try and build something that's similar. So I think it's really good that we have this competition happening right now. And I think the users themselves have kind of spoken, right? Like, I think a lot of people have said this already, but users don't really care about protocols or the technology that is underlying all of this stuff. They like the ideas of it, but they don't really care. They look at this stuff as a tool for connection. And choosing a platform for a protocol for most users would be like choosing a piece of furniture because you own like one specific screwdriver at home. Like, no one does that, right? Like, you buy the furniture that you want because it works in your house, and then you figure out how you work with that from there. So I don't think this moment of folks coming to the open social web was inevitable. I think it's kind of a lightning in a bottle moment, and I really think we need to seize it. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways we are kind of confusing users. I've been in a ton of conversations over the last couple of years about this, and I'm sure you've been in conversations like this before as well, where a friend or family member or something will come to you and be like, hey, I'm finally ready to leave X. I want a new space. Where do I go? I want to be where the people are, right? And so you sit down with them, you look at who they're following, and you're like, well, hey, these journalists that you follow are super active on Blue Sky, this dev community that you're part of. I know that there's a Mastodon instance that does a lot of work with that. Oh, these celebrities that you follow, they post quite a bit on Threads, so I'm sorry, you might have to use Threads. And then they get angry because they're like, wait, you told me that this was all open. Like, what happened to that? Why can't I just use one account and be able to connect with all these folks? Wasn't that the promise? And then you start looking like this guy, right? Where you're like, trying to explain the nuances of this stuff and trying to explain why it's not all working together and why maybe in the future it might and blah, 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 blah. And they, fair enough, get frustrated with you and they either stay on X or they just choose one platform and they deal with the limitations that they have to deal with on that platform. Now, the good news is that there are some people trying to blur these lines and simplify this problem a little bit more. You have apps like Buffer and Croissant that allow you to cross-post. You have feed apps like OpenVibe, Surf, Reader, Tapestry that combine all of your feeds into one place. You have these really cool services that are like a little hacky but kind of cool, like Skybridge, that let you use your Mastodon clients with your Blue Sky account. And these are great, right? Like, they're super low friction, they hide a lot of complexity, and they let you focus on your interactions before anything else, because that's what they want, right? Like, they just want to interact with the people. But unfortunately, because of the way things are right now and the fragmentation that we have, they still carry some of the burdens of old social media where, you still have to sign up for at least one account on one of these protocols. Every single time you cross-post, you're now dealing with multiple discussion threads, right? So a lot of the old social media problems still exist because of this fragmentation. And so that's why, after digging a lot into this and trying to figure out what the right solution is, I kind of landed on bridges, and Bridgefed in specific, something that Ryan built a while back. For those that may not know, bridges enable cross-protocol communication. So if I'm on ActivityPub, I can join a bridge, and now all of a sudden I feel native to Blue Sky, right? And there's various ways that we're trying to make that even easier. But to me, it's more than just users bridging from one place to another. I actually think it enables a cross-protocol network. And to me, it's a cross-protocol network for the open social web and a faster track to that last network effect that I was talking about. Because if everyone's in the same place, you can start doing some really interesting stuff that I'm going to discuss in just a second. And the cool thing is that this isn't just like some grand idea that came out of nowhere. Like, this is already being used by a lot of users and organizations. I think Bridgefed has something along the lines of like almost 100K users, which is insane. Like, I actually had no idea until I talked to Ryan that that's how popular it was. Like, for instance, it's used by Jay Graber, CEO of Blue Sky. She's bridged over to the Fediverse. And then Eugene Rochko, the founder of Mastodon, he's bridged over to Blue Sky, and he's got 3.3K followers on Blue Sky alone, right? So like, people are following him because they're interested in what he has to say, not because they care about where he's posting, right? And there's lots of examples of this. There's David Amell, the co-host of the Waveform podcast. He does a lot of great photography, and he wanted a photography gallery, and he felt like PixelFed was a great fit for that. But he's super active on Blue Sky, so he bridged the account over to Blue Sky, and he gets a ton of interaction there on his photography, because there's a really great photography community on Blue Sky that wants to do that with him. Ghost, who just launched their ActivityPub beta for their newsletter service, they bridged the blog that's tracking that progress over to Blue Sky, and I've seen them get a ton of interaction there as well, and a bunch of questions on how the bridging is going to work for them as far as like blog posts getting comments back from AT. Mike McHugh, CEO of Flipboard, his flipboard.social account is bridged over, and he's got 2.7K followers. And I think this is like, I'm saying a lot of this mostly just to say, like, people don't really care about where these folks are coming from. They just know who they want to follow, and they just want to hit a follow button and make sure that they can keep up with what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's just about people, man. It's not about the platforms. It's about the people and the people that you want to follow. And quite frankly, users shouldn't have to care about the platform that you're using or what protocol you're using. They should be able to find and keep their community no matter where they are in this open social space. And the cool thing about the way this bridge is being built and all of the bridges that are being built is when you have a protocol agnostic platform, cross-protocol network, you can start doing really interesting things like helping people move not just between platforms within their protocol ecosystem, but even using that protocol agnostic network to move them over to a whole other protocol while maintaining all of their relationships. And it's something that we're experimenting with right now. And we're already seeing some cross-protocol actions on these services today. There's a bunch of starter packs that have a bunch of bridged Fediverse users. There's Fediverse relays that are just fully just the Blue Sky, that are just full of Blue Sky bridged users. And so people are already making use of this stuff so they can find people across all these platforms, even though the platforms themselves, especially on the Fediverse side, may not natively support some of this stuff. But we're getting there and we're moving forward. So right now, yes, we should build on protocols. AT protocol is amazing, and I'm so excited about everything that's happening here. But at the same time, this fragmentation, I think we need to help kind of work with this and make sure that users understand what's happening. So alongside building on top of protocols, I hope we're going to spend some time building some bridges, not walls, so that people can find their people. And if you want to find me, I'm all across the open social web, but here's where you can find me otherwise. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.